evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 65 of Regal Live series. I am Vivek Agrawal, and I'm excited to host today's session on an insightful and transformative topic, adding coaching mindset to yourself and your work. We are honored to have Subbu Parameswaran as our guest today. Subbu is an ICF certified ACC coach, leadership mentor, and organizational consultant with an impressive 26-year journey across corporate leadership, consulting, and social impact. His experience spans working with leaders, founders, and teams, helping them build leadership capacity, enhance collaboration, and drive meaningful transformation. As the co-founder of Learning Curve, he played a key role in scaling a social impact initiative to 600 schools, positively impacting over 1.5 lakh students annually. Now, Subbu is passionate about helping professionals integrate a coaching mindset, not just as a skill, but as a way of thinking and leading. In today's session, we'll explore what is a coaching mindset and why does it matter? How can you apply it in your life and work? And what impact does it have on leadership, collaboration, and growth? Let's dive into the enriching conversation. Welcome, Subbu, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Vivek, and thank you for having me here. I'm very excited about this conversation.
Thank you. So, Subbu, let's start. So, to start with, I want to ask you, what inspired you to embrace coaching mindset? And why do you see it as a powerful way of thinking and leading?
Okay. I think so. When I started my coaching journey, I think I was just curious about what coaching is, and I think as I sort of started getting into the space and sort of learning about the competencies is when I came across this idea of coaching mindset, and then I realized that coaching mindset is really in some ways about this inherent curiosity that you need to have, and in coaching, this curiosity is so important, right? And this curiosity about, for example, what holds someone back is such an important part of that coaching process, for you to be able to kind of unlock that. So that was one thing, right? And the other thing that stayed with me and continues, and that's a lot of work in progress, is the fact that when you start to work on a coaching mindset, you start looking at your own assumptions that you make about certain things, and therefore as you start challenging your own assumptions, and then as you challenge somebody else's assumptions in a conversation, there are some beautiful new insights that sort of start to come, right? And to me, I think this whole idea of coaching mindset really revolves around these two beautiful areas around that curiosity, that inherent natural curiosity that we should have, and also around the fact that you can challenge those assumptions, see very different possibilities that you would never have seen. And I think that's what drew me more and more into this. Of course, it's just been a year, so obviously work in progress. But I think in there, starting to experience and helping other people experience it as well.
Thank you for sharing that, Subbu. So yes, being curious and challenging the assumptions, I think these are very two powerful tools as we coaches we use during our coaching sessions. I was just thinking, what kind of shift can occur in us coaches, when we adopt this coaching mindset of curiosity and challenging the assumption, if I ask you.
Okay. And you're asking in the context of us as coaches, right?
Yeah. As coaches. So as coaches, once we get very curious and we start to challenge assumptions, what kind of shift do we start to see in ourselves also? That's important.
Okay. So I mean, let me just share. I mean, my background has been a lot of my background has been in the consulting space, right? And in consulting, uh, your your go-to is to fix a problem. That is why somebody wants you as a consultant, right? So when you're fixing a problem, or when you're fixing something, when you're trying to get something done more efficiently, etc., you are really coming from your own context, you're coming from your own experiences, and then trying to fit that into somebody else's context. But in coaching, that doesn't work. It's as simple as that, right? Because how I behave in my context is purely mine. It does not belong to anybody else, and it cannot be shaped by somebody else's opinion on that experience. And that is the shift, I think. And the moment you sort of accept and acknowledge that particular shift, you're no longer fixing something for somebody, right? And therefore you're then only co-creating, if that at best, but really allowing the other person to create. And to me, that is the coaching mindset. And I can tell you this because I think definitely for the first few months of my coaching journey, I struggled with this quite a lot.
Mhm.
And I still do. I still do. So I will admit that. But I think that's really what the coaching mindset embodies, a shift, that shift.
I completely resonate with this, Subbu. So I've also been into the coaching space for the past 8 to 9 months now. And embodying the coaching mindset in the true sense is really difficult, I would admit here. So while being curious and challenging assumptions is definitely the key ingredients for the coaching mindset, I was just thinking what personal habits could help leaders uh, cultivate the coaching mindset in them. If you could share something on this.
Hmm. I think one that almost immediately comes to mind, right, is that as leaders, try giving less advice and try asking better questions. Right? That almost instantly sort of jumped up as soon as you asked that question. Uh, and as you ask questions, you allow that other person, whoever that person is in your team, could be a peer, uncover and unlock some of those things, right? And that helps them create their own solutions. And I mean, to me, that is what leadership is about, right? You're enabling people to create their own solutions, and you're not force fitting or giving them solutions to implement. So that's the difference between leadership and managing in that sense, right? That is one. The other thing which I believe is very important for a leader is for a leader to be tuned into his or her own emotions, and be able to recognize what shift is actually happening. All leaders will experience difficult emotions, etc., but realizing when that shift happens and then being able to acknowledge that at that moment becomes very important in order for you to have that mindset as a leader. And that's in a lot of ways, that's your emotional self-regulation, which does not come without the awareness of what that emotion is, being able to label it, being able to acknowledge in that moment, right? So to me, these are two um, big ones, I think, for leaders to get into that space of the mindset of coaching.
I think so. Ask versus tell, and number one, and number two, tapping into our own emotions, being more aware of our own emotions. I think what I heard you say right now. So, uh, being myself for 15 years in this industry, corporate industry, leaders generally have a mindset of leaders generally have an authoritative style of leadership. We love getting things done. We love dictating to people what should be done. So, being aware of our own emotions at that time and focusing on asking than telling becomes so much difficult. So I just wanted to understand if you could share something on what kind of challenges leaders would face while trying to adopt this coaching mindset in the corporate environment specifically. So I talked about this challenge, for example. So how do you see what leaders can do to overcome this, I would say then?
Hmm. So I think, I think to me, the idea is not around replacing. And idea is not sort of to be a coach at all times. Right? That is, we know that that is not possible. But the idea is to essentially be able to recognize and identify when you need to have that mindset, when you need to be authoritative. If it's a crisis, if you're in the middle of a crisis, essentially a coaching mindset may not necessarily work. And therefore, at that point, you pull your experience in, and you propose the best solution, and sometimes you even pull rank and get it done. Right, and therefore that kind of management, that kind of leadership is also important. So one is being able to recognize that you don't necessarily have to go between one extreme to another space. And each of those spaces, each of those mindsets have their own value in the world that we operate in, right? I mean, for example, I can say for a fact that I can never have a coaching mindset at all times. That's not possible, right? I mean, you bring it in somewhere, you don't bring it in somewhere. So having that ability to vary, I think is a core component of knowing when to use what style. I hope that sort of answers your question.
That was a brilliant one, and absolutely right, Subbu. We can't be having a coaching mindset, and we can't be using a coaching mindset every time in the corporate. We need to be very selective. What I believe, and when to use that and when to not. So, so I just asking one more question from my experience. So, when I entered into this coaching space, and once I got to know what coaching is more of asking than telling, and all emotions and feelings. I was thinking one day how to cultivate this in my team. So I was leading a CIO vertical for the organization, and I had a lot of 5 senior people reporting to me. And I was just thinking what to tell them, how to help them, what 2, 3 ways I could tell them which can help them cultivate this coaching mindset in them. So I just thought that if I can use this platform to ask you, what could be 2, 3 ways you would like to share on this platform which can help leaders cultivate coaching mindset in them?
Mm. Mm. I think that's a great question. Bit of head scratcher there. Um, I think the ability to pause and reflect a little bit. Because when you pause, you tend to slow down your sort of your the thinking fast brain tends to sort of go to the thinking slow brain, and you tend to slow down a bit, right? uh, therefore therefore when you pause and you're actually reflecting on it, that allows your tuning to become better. So that is one practice that I think will be uh, that has helped me for sure. uh, Definitely, that is one, right? The other is that the other is this power of reframing. So when we say something or a leader's facing something, somebody's saying something negatively, right? And coming with a problem, for example, right? How do you find a way to reframe that problem? uh, do you find a way to reframe that problem as an opportunity? Do you find that way to reframe that problem as even a solution, perhaps, right? These become very, I think for me, these are interesting tools, interesting skills that allow leaders to be able to develop this mindset, right? Allow your own tuning to happen, and then you essentially use the power of reframing. And that's what, as coaches, we need to do, right? You want to reframe the way the client is looking at a certain problematic area, and that uncovers new things. So that's how I would respond to that.
This is really interesting, Subbu. So taking a pause and reframing. I think reframing, so again, my personal, but taking a pause is really difficult in the corporate landscape for sure. I can say this on this platform also. When people come and tell you, give you all those reasons of things not getting done, and we taking a pause and asking them the next question, real difficult. But yes, I fully agree on that. So taking a pause and reframing should definitely work. So one more thing, I'm just thinking, how do you see this coaching mindset evolving in the corporate and the leadership landscape? Where do you see it going in next 5 to 10 years, if I can ask?
Mm. Uh, I think the corporate world is, and I'm being very sort of broad based about it. There may be outliers, there may be, organizational systems that are more attuned to coaching. But I think by and large, I would think that the corporate world hasn't yet fully differentiated between coaching and mentoring and consulting. So everything becomes mixed. Everything in some ways becomes mixed, right? And therefore, when we look at leadership development, uh, the whole idea of coaching mindset and some of these skill competencies like presence or listening becomes such a core thing, but it is often never really taken in a leader's development journey, right? And
Yeah,
we're still sort of talking about competencies like strategic thinking, business acumen for leadership, but we're not really talking about developing presence. I can't come across a single client in the last couple of years who's come to me and said presence, right? So I think the vocabulary of coaching is still emerging. But that said, um, there is also a growing community of coaches now, and I think therefore it in some ways it's our role to sort of bring that to the corporate world, because I believe that there's tremendous value of coaching in the corporate world for multiple reasons that we spoke about earlier. And therefore I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, a growing community of coaches should take some of that ownership to sort of bring in that vocabulary in, bring in those practices, into the corporate world. And I think just with any other process that takes time for organizations to absorb and process, this will take its own journey. But I think it will institutionalize. That's my firm belief for sure.
that was strong and very direct, Subbu, that we coaches and the senior people in the corporate world should take that initiative to bring this coaching mindset in the corporate culture and environment. And yes, I also somewhere agree that it will gradually, slowly, will definitely come uh, into the mainstream in the corporates as well. So, in the interest of time, Subbu, uh, one question I have, and then I'll open to you if you have something to share on your side. If I ask you to just summarize the essence of coaching mindset in one sentence, what would you say?
I would say that coaching mindset is really about believing in people's potential to grow and to change, and to have that curiosity to allow that to happen. That's my one sentence. You made that a tough one though.
That was very thoughtful, Subbu, and thank you for sharing that. Anything you want to add before we go towards the end of the session now?
No, I mean, I don't have anything specific, but I think I'm just glad that I love this conversation. Coaching mindset is something that is always a work in progress, and I'm glad I was able to sort of talk about it a little bit here. So no, I've had a lovely conversation. Thank you.
Same here, Subbu, and you could share so much for our audience. So I can only say that what an insightful conversation this was. And Subbu, a big thank you to you for sharing such valuable perspectives on adding coaching mindset to yourself and your work. Your insights on how a coaching mindset transforms leadership, collaboration, and growth have been truly inspiring. And thank you to everyone who joined us live and engaged with your questions. Your participation makes these sessions even more meaningful. Before we wrap up, is an exciting news. New ICF ACC in-person and PCC hybrid batches are coming up in Bangalore this April. Stay tuned if you're looking to deepen your coaching journey. We would love to hear your key takeaways. Drop them in the comments and follow Regal Live series for more inspiring conversations. Up till next time, keep learning, stay curious, and embrace the power of coaching. And thank you once again, Subbu, for giving your time on this platform and sharing your deep insights on how leaders can develop coaching mindset. And I also want to mention before we end that leader as a coach, Regal takes this series of Regal as leaders as a coach, and this training and these sessions would be very valuable to the corporate leaders, purely from the perspectives Subbu shared with us on this platform. Thank you, Subbu, once again.